Hi there. Thank you so much for checking out this episode. 2024 has been an amazing year for Portals Podcast. We came back strong after an extended hiatus, putting together a number of really inspirational and empowering episodes, all created to help the community in a number of different ways. Now, 2024 has come and gone, and 2025 promises to be just as interesting. I've decided to go back and take a look at a few of my favorite moments from the past year and share them again one more time before we kick off a brand new season of Portals Podcast. I hope you enjoy them. This has been an exciting process, creating Portals Podcast. I've learned so much, and now I'm really excited to put everything I've learned into practice in 2025. Season 3 will kick off in February. Now, I have a quick favor to ask of you before we get into this. Would you please take a second and click that like and subscribe button? It's a small ask, but it really does a lot of good to help this channel. My goal with Portals Podcast is to have it monetized, and in order to do that, I need to have a few requirements met, such as a specific number of subscribers. So even though it seems like a very small effort on your part, it really does a lot of good for us. Thank you so much, and let's get inspired. Part 1. Renunciation Ceremony. Clearing the Debris. This exercise was first introduced to me in the early 2000s as part of a men's group I was involved in. It's called a renunciation ceremony. Even if you're thinking, what's the point of this? Please just go along with it. It's all about renouncing a trait, an aspect, or behavior that you no longer want in your life, and it's very powerful. What's the number one thing holding you back? Chances are you already know what it is, so just say it. What else is holding you back? Are there several things? On the top of that sheet of paper, write, what's preventing me from living my best life? And then just write all the things. Don't edit yourself. Just go with the flow and put it all out on a page. Is it a relationship, a job, or the lack of a job, a belief system? Maybe it's a deep trauma you've never dealt with. Is it a belief about yourself or the world around you? Write it down as a list with one statement or cause per line, and leave 4 lines between each item on the list. Write as many as you feel. If it's just one thing, write it down. If it's a dozen things, write them all down. However many it is, get it all out on the paper. Think of every item on your list as a weight holding you down, and by writing it out, you're actually taking the weight off your shoulders and putting it onto the paper. When you're finished, put the pen down and walk away from the list for a couple minutes. Go take care of something else. Take out the trash, wash your face, whatever. Just distract yourself for a minute. This will reset your brain before we dive back in. When you're ready, head back to the list and read it back to yourself. Is there anything that you want to add or remove? Should you rephrase something to make it a little more accurate about how you really feel? Once you're all set with your list, ask yourself these 4 questions about each item on it. Number 1, can I do anything about this, or am I powerless to change it? 2, if I can change it, what can I do about it? Number 3, what does my life look like without this affecting me? And the 4th and final question is probably the hardest. Is this really holding me back, or am I just using it as an excuse? That's a tough one. What's real and what's not? Sometimes we use excuses for so long that they become part of the myth we tell ourselves. We prop things up as reasons for not doing things because, for whatever reason, they've become tools that we use. Once you've answered those questions, sit with your list for a few minutes and make any revisions that you need to. Now we're going to liberate ourselves from those things. That sounds good, doesn't it? What I was taught to do is to take that list, hold it in the air, and acknowledge that these things are keeping you stuck and that you're no longer going to allow them to do so. Verbalize your intention. Say out loud, I'm removing all of the things on this list from my life. Or, these things no longer serve me. Then, get rid of it. Destroy it. I like to burn it. If I'm in a safe place or outside, I'll burn it and watch the smoke just carry it all away. imagining that I no longer have to worry about any of those things. And if I can't burn it, I'll rip it up into as many shreds as possible, repeating to myself, I'm taking back my power with each rip of this paper, or these things no longer keep me stuck. Imagine the flame burning all those things out of your life, or each rip tearing them apart. The more you rip, the less there is. At this point, I also like to golden key the items on the list. Now you can find an episode on the golden key on the Portals Podcast channel. The Golden Key by Emmett Fox. The combination of the renunciation ceremony and the golden key is a powerful 1-2 punch that removes the issue but replaces it with something good. You don't have to golden key it. The ceremony is powerful on its own. That's just something I like to do, but I've always been a bit extra. So why is this ceremony important? By taking a look at the things we feel are holding us back and then putting them on paper, we are facing them and choosing to let them go, relieving ourselves of them. We're choosing to break the bond that they have on us. We're taking action. We're actually doing the work, as they say. When a piece of paper is destroyed, take a minute to sit back and feel how much lighter you are. I've been known to do this ceremony in the middle of the night. It's particularly effective when dealing with insomnia or when my thoughts are racing. It's like gathering those thoughts and insecurities physically and then destroying them. Then I sleep like a baby. It feels amazing. Part 2. Real change. Facing fears and honoring commitment. In the first part of this process, we identified the people, places, and things that were holding us back, and we took steps to address them. Now, in Part 2, we're going to confront the number one offender that keeps us from creating the lives we envision for ourselves. Fear. Some of you may already feel a bit of fear or hesitation creeping in. Maybe it feels silly or unnecessary to be doing all this. And maybe for you it is. I can only share with you what's worked for me. It's natural to feel awkward when you try something new. Whenever we make significant changes in our lives, thoughts, feelings, and fears often arise that, under normal circumstances, can derail our efforts at self-improvement. These are the thoughts and feelings of self-doubt and insignificance. Chances are, the seeds of these feelings were planted long before you can remember. They may have been passed down through the generations. Many of these subtle ideas we hold about ourselves and the world around us are actually inherited. I know this struggle all too well. I've had to work through what is now known as imposter syndrome many times. I've battled feelings of being small and insignificant for most of my life. In fact, this is something I deal with every time I sit down to write an episode for this podcast. That's why I'm bringing it up here, as a way of facing it in this moment. I'm experiencing it right now, in fact. As I write this script, I'm facing these doubts. So let's take a minute to address imposter syndrome, starting with the definition. Imposter syndrome is a common psychological pattern where individuals doubt their accomplishments and feel undeserving of their success. They often believe that they're faking it or will be exposed as a fraud. There's a story that runs through my head about how I'm just a poor, broken kid from Detroit, Michigan. I was a juvenile delinquent, in and out of the system. I don't have much of a formal education, and I'm not worthy of telling anybody how to do anything. Nobody's going to listen to what I have to say. I don't have credentials. There's a dozen variations of that story that play out in my mind at times. I'm telling you, there's a very fragile young kid inside me who doesn't feel worthy and tries to talk me down every time I attempt something big. And he's cruel. But here's how I deal with that. I reprogram myself. How? It's actually quite simple, but it works. I have mantras that I repeat whenever those feelings of insecurity or doubt creep in. If programming is what caused these doubts, then programming is what can heal them. It's about replacing those old thoughts with new, more vibrant thoughts that feel better. Here's a few examples. I have zero control over what happened to me or the choices that I made in the past, but I do have control over the choices that I make now. My life is greater than the sum of its parts. I'm a miracle and a survivor. Look at this life that I've lived. I'm a success story. I've grown past my pain and lived to love fully. I'm grateful for every lesson, for they are what made me who I am. Once we do the work to get past that part of us that tries to shut us down, then we're starting to see the absolute wonder of it all. Being committed in the face of fear and insecurity is huge, groundbreaking, life-changing, and world-shifting. Good job.